Hey guys, Loki here, blessed be, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of cursing yourself or self-cursing spirals. Because a lot of people, especially on TikTok, tend to be very paranoid on whether or not they've cursed themselves, whether or not they've been cursed in general, if people are sending them terrible, magic, and all of that fun stuff. It just seems to be all around. People are very paranoid. I did end up making a video on how I personally have been able to identify curses, and I did provide a little bit of information on diagnosing curses. But like I said, that's very subjective to you, your spirituality, and your energy, which is why I can't necessarily make a video on specifics when it comes to diagnosing whether or not you've been cursed or not. I can only give you a rerun of hypothetics and symptoms that other people, as well as myself, have experienced due to that. But a lot of the time people will take that out of proportion and then will use symptoms that they've experienced without a synchronicity behind it. They'll say, well, I've had this symptom, that means I'm cursed. That is not necessarily true. You also need to take in, number one thing is taking in the mundane effects, the mundane influences that are, on you, on your life, on your craft, and the results of that. Because a lot of people will have a great, what would the word be? Basically, a really great sheet, a list of, here's all the things going on wrong in my life. And if you don't look behind that and you're just looking at that surface information, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this person's very cursed. Their life is totally messed up. Everything's going wrong. All of these symptoms are symptoms that you'd use to diagnose someone who's cursed. But if you look behind that, a lot of those things might be mundane. It might, a lot of people, for instance, will say that they break out, in rashes because they're cursing, or when they're being cursed, or when things have been sent towards them. But in reality, you might be allergic to the laundry detergent you're using, and it's a reoccurring thing because you're allergic to your laundry detergent. And, it's simple things like that that you really have to process and break down before you can come to the conclusion. And that is also why specifically things like wards are help diagnose or help identify when someone is sending something to you, because wards are triggered specifically by energy, which means that it's only going to filter the energy that you're trying to capture or ward off. So those are the best indicator for diagnosing, as well as like typical divination. But I want to break down, this is specifically the reason why I wanted to talk about cursing yourself, is because a lot of people will look at divination and be like, am I cursed? And you might get some really shitty cards and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I am real bad. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're cursed. That's why when it comes to doing divination on whether or not you're cursed in that specific terminology, that's very subjective, because you can curse yourself with your own mindset. You can curse yourself with your perception. You can curse yourself with a specific feeling if you let yourself spiral into that feeling. And no, I'm not saying that like if you feel negative things, you will be cursed. You guys know me. I'm not about that. I'm all about the scale spectrum. So exactly. But when it comes down to divination, a lot of people will assume that because when they put in, or, they, ask their cards or ask the, whatever they're using to scry, am I cursed? That's going to bring up a lot of yeses, because you might be cursing yourself. You might be the biggest thing in your way, and all of the time we're the biggest thing in our way. That's the human experience. But cursing yourself, holding yourself back from potential, you're going to get a yes. Like, a lot of people are gonna get a yes. And that's because of our mindset. That's the way that we interact with our environment, interact with our influences, interact with our resources, our perception behind that. and how we're pivoting, or how we are transmuting the energy that we are receiving. And so it's gonna seem like we're cursed. We might have really bad luck that we're manifesting because we're spiraling in this paranoia that the world is out to get us. And that is a very dangerous concept. It is very dangerous that the universe is not out to get you. Things happen, and no, not everything's supposed to happen for a reason, but things do happen. And that does not mean that the universe is giving you specifically a bad deck of cards. They're not, you don't have entities trying to attack you. Someone isn't sending you baneful magic because you broke out a couple times and your boyfriend left you and then you also got fired in the same week. That's no. A lot of the time it has to do, and I'm not saying that these are the specifics to that example either, so I'm trying to be as clear as possible. But when it comes to, your hygiene, when it, or the physical attributes to being cursed, are you breaking out a lot? Do you feel very dizzy more often? Okay, well, are you cleansing yourself, both physically and spiritually? Are you hydrating yourself? Are you taking your medications if you are supposed to be taking medications? Do you have a proper sleep routine? Physical attributes most of the time have to do with self-care, how you're taking care of yourself. A lot of the time, especially if you're a practitioner that has any kind of protection, it's typically not going to filter directly to that. The next would be your mindset in your mind. You might have lots of nightmares. A lot of the time, nightmares and the things that you get shown through your dreams are your brain's priorities, your priority thoughts. So a lot of the time you might have a lot of dreams of someone who traumatized you, someone who makes you really mad. That doesn't always mean that that person is talking behind your back. It doesn't mean that that person is sending you baneful matter or sending you any kind of negative matter or the evil eye from gossiping or anything like that. It might mean that you think about that person a lot, and now that's going to manifest in your dream, because the things that you think about that are most active in your head throughout the day and then right before you go to sleep are the things that are more likely to show up in your subconscious. So if you have a significant trauma in your life, you're probably going to have a lot of night terrors. A lot of people might not correlate that with more micro examples or micro movements, such as having an argument with someone and, let's just say that you had an argument with another practitioner and then you dream about that practitioner that night. It doesn't mean that that practitioner is in your dreams trying to corrupt your brain or anything, you guys. It might mean that you are all worked up and you're very emotionally engaged with that person, and your filter between you and them, that energetical cord is not, that filter is less. You're receiving more of their energy because you are more engaged to that cord between you and them. So yes, they're going to show up more in your dreams. It does not mean that they're projecting themselves. Please don't assume that they're trying to curse you, trying to ruin you. Don't think that every single time you fight with someone in your dreams or someone shows up, that is someone talking about you, or that alone can be divination. A lot of the times, there's lots and lots of different ways to distinguish when you are actually receiving a sign, and I talk about that a lot on my Patreon. A very small example, and like I said, dream work and divination and how spirit shows itself to you or shows anything to you is going to be very different. But for an example, if someone is, that's talking behind your back, gossiping, and a way that you might see that in a dream is, they're confronting you, or you might see them talking bad about you in the dream, but they might also have a necklace with a tooth on it. Teeth can represent gossip, so can a tongue. That might be a symbolization. And then you might wake up the next day and immediately have a message from them only when you think about them. Okay, now like I said, don't diagnose off of that either. It's very subjective to you and the situation and the other person involved. But like I said, there's little things, there's micro movements that you will be able to use to diagnose the situation in general. Not even just to like diagnose a curse. And I'm using that word because there's almost like a checklist. There's a lot of requirements that are meant to be, you know, met in order to have a diagnosis or diagnosis of anything. And that is exactly why I'm using that word, because there's so much that goes into it. And a lot of people think that curse work is very black and white when it comes to being able to tell if someone's sending something to you. And that is a lot because of these quick, you know, less than a minute long videos. Most of the time they're 15-second long videos of, you know, people how to tell if you're cursed. And yes, those are great videos, but people take those out of retrospect. But people are taking those way out of the specific or what that's engaged for. That's like a textbook. You don't read one book and then dedicate every single word to your life. You take what resonates, leave the rest. And like I said, that's all subjective. A lot of the time, those people are speaking on their terms. They're speaking on their experiences. This is how I was able to tell that I was cursed. It's like that. Or there's a lot of collective experiences where a lot of people have a lot of the same things. That's, you know, why a lot of those videos are created, and then people are able to piece that together. But never take those alone. Never look at those videos alone. Never try to think that you're cursed because you saw a video online, actually. Like, let's just go there. Do your research, you guys, with yourself. And, like, yes, of course, I'm going to say do your research, like, Google things, all of that stuff. But I mean, research yourself. How is Spirit talking to you? What is Spirit telling you? Because when you look into that, and you're able to actually see the filter, that source, that Spirit is providing you, then you're actually going to be able to understand what they're telling you. It's like a whole nother language. If someone was speaking to you in another language that you didn't understand, you're not going to interpret everything, because you can't. You don't understand it. So you need to connect and engage with Spirit in order to see what kind of filter they are speaking through and how they'll speak to you. The color red in a dream will have a way different significance to me than it might to you, okay? It's all little things like that. A fucking chicken might have a different significance to me than it would to you. So you need to get engaged. You need to do the shadow work, unpack the hidden parts of you that you might not fully understand, because a lot of the time it's hidden in repression, and all repression is hidden in shadow work. In the shadows. That's why it's repressed. So unpacking that, starting to connect more with the dreams and that too. But then you'll be able to understand how you're actually, like, if you're actually cursed. But other than that, it's all about this spiral. A lot of people have this paranoia that someone's out to get them, or that the universe is out to get them because they've had a very unlucky week, or a month, or even a year. Okay? And then they get in this spiral that everything's just really bad right now. That's a manifestation. If you validate and acknowledge, you are creating an energy, or a fucking energy signature with this, okay, that everything is bad right now. Okay, so mote it be, is what the universe is gonna say. That's a manifestation. It's okay to acknowledge when things aren't good, but you have to work through that. And if you're repressing things, if you're avoiding things, or even worse, if you're accepting that bad energy in a sense of, this is my life now, I can't do better than this, or this situation isn't going to ever get better or resolve energetically or vibrationally, then you're going to start to spiral, because you're latching onto that specific energy and then creating a very large connection to it, and you're opening the outlet even more. So now you're receiving more of that specific energy, which is everything isn't working out to what it needs to be. my body is failing me, whatever it's going to be, okay? And I use both of those because those are two that I keep telling myself that I need not to. But the more and more you do that, the more and more you're going to keep solidifying and creating this foundation of a negative manifestation. And like I said, it's not about avoiding the negative energies. It's about processing, working through them, and transmuting them, being able to create something out of that energy. Otherwise, you're always going to fall into that negative spiral. Always. So, yeah, of course, there are ways to tell if you are cursed. But chances are you're not, you guys. You're not. You are cursing yourself with your self-neglect and your negative mindset and your lack of spiritual engagement with yourself. When you are disconnected with yourself, you cannot connect to yourself. There's no foundation there. There's no stability. You need to get to know yourself in order to even be able to diagnose that yourself. Of course, there's spells that I could teach you guys. Of course, there's different divinational tricks I could teach you guys. But until you are comfortable with your energy, you're gonna have to sit with creating a foundation of protection in order to even be protected. But that first starts with protecting you from yourself, your self-harm, your self-allowance or enabling any kind of way that you could be harming yourself. If you are neglecting that or hiding it or repressing it, that is a seed of curses. And the longer you reject yourself, the longer you neglect yourself, the longer you hurt yourself and abuse yourself, the more you're nurturing that seed, and the bigger that plant is gonna grow. And all of a sudden you have this giant, really bad tree, toxic tree in your system, and you're like, well, this has really deep roots. Yeah, because you created a habit of cursing yourself. You created a habit of being comfortable in your self-sickness. And of course, once again, I just want to make another disclaimer that when it comes to mental health, that's subjective. Of course, I'm not saying to ignore your mental health. I'm not telling you to get over your mental health. Mental health in itself is a curse. Like, let's be real there. Mental health in itself is a curse. And it's all about pivoting and transmuting that energy and not letting it eat at you. Because when it eats at you, it's going to get real toxic really fast. And you have to be accountable for your vibration. That is all for today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.